All right, so for the first time in about 6 months, I'm getting back in the studio. I'm going to an actual studio with actual humans, and I'm really excited to be able to collaborate and create in that way again. We're going to be safe, we're going to be socially distanced for most of the time. I'm going to be in an isolated room with just guitar amps, but when we're around each other, we'll have masks and all of that kind of stuff. With COVID-19 still going on in July of 2020, it's going to be a little different, but it's going to be really exciting just to be able to be in the room and to be able to make music with other people again. So I thought this would be a really good opportunity to kind of walk you through what I do to get prepared for a day in the studio. The slot's about 9 hours, so I'm going to be there a while, and many of you maybe haven't ever been in a studio environment before. Maybe you have taken this time during COVID-19 to really kind of hone your chops, or maybe you've been looking at other ways to make income on the side if you're a live musician, and session work is a great way to do that. Now, sometimes it can be kind of hard depending on where you live to get access to studios and meet people and producers and people like that will hire you. But once you get in that situation, you always want to make a good impression. You want to show up prepared. You don't want to show up with so much gear that it takes you forever to set up. But at the same time, you don't just want to show up with a guitar and an amp and expect to be able to do whatever you need to do. There's a few things that I like to bring to sessions so I feel comfortable. I've got enough gear that I have options, but I don't have so much gear that I'm paralyzed by options. So I'm going to show you kind of what I do to pack and get prepared, and also things that I do is just kind of best practices to prepare musically. So the most important thing when you are getting ready to go into the studio is being prepared musically. If you have the luxury of having a chart or a demo ahead of time, then I would spend as much time with that as possible, especially if it's your first time in a studio environment. The more comfortable you are musically, the more comfortable you're going to be when the red record light is on and you're on paid time. And that's an important thing, especially if you want to get a call back. If this is your first time in the studio with this particular artist or this particular producer or this particular studio, there are multiple points there where people can have a great impression of you or a not so great impression of you. You want to be professional, you want to be timely, and a big part of that is being prepared musically. What I would do if I were you, if they send you a chart and a demo, I would listen to the demo, and I like to write out my own chart. I always keep a legal pad and either a Sharpie or just a black pen around when I'm at home, so I can go through, listen to the song a few times, and write out my own chart. Now this does a couple of things. One, this just gets your ear engaged musically because you're going through and you're having to analyze it. And number two, it helps you to remember the song better. See, when we write things down, we remember things better. So if you go through and you make your own chart to the song, you are doing yourself a favor by actually learning the song better. Even if it's a simple song, I still like to do this. And then you can take your chart, compare it to the chart that they sent you, and make sure everything's lined up. Because sometimes it's easy to get some chords confused, especially if you're new to this or if it's very complicated musically. So another thing you want to do when getting ready to go into the studio is think about what gear you need to bring or want to bring. So for today's session, for example, I'm only playing electric guitar, so I don't have to worry about acoustic or anything like that. So I need to decide what guitar or guitars I'm going to bring, and I always at least take two, but in this case I'll probably take all three of mine just because. And you also want to make sure those guitars are at prime operating capacity. So I always go through, test all my gear and stuff at home, even if it worked fine yesterday. For some crazy reason, something could happen and it could not function as well today. Another thing I do is always restring my guitars before a session. Now, whatever strings you use or whatever are fine. I like the D'Addario NYXLs, particularly when they're brand new. They sound great. And as soon as you get them stretched out, they're fine. So I don't even have problems when I restring them the same day. but usually I'll try to restring all of my guitars a couple of days ahead of time. And another thing, when I'm packing stuff for the studio, I'll always make sure that I take like a string winder cutter and some spare strings, just in the event that I were to have a string break. This is particularly important if you only have one guitar on the session. If you break a string for some reason during the session and you don't have spare strings, then you're in pretty big trouble. No one wants to wait on you to go buy new strings. So another thing is thinking about the other gear that you want to bring. So if you've got your guitars decided, then you need to think about what amp or modeler or pedal board or any of the combination of those things that you're going to take. For today's session, again, I kind of know what the song is like and kind of the vibe of it, so I'm actually not going to take my Kemper. The Kemper's great. I love being able to dial up sounds on the fly, but the parts that I'm going to be doing today in this song are a little bit more simple. It's really groove heavy, so it's not going to need as much guitar stuff. I don't need any kind of crazy wet stereo effects or anything like that. So I'm actually just going to take one amp. I'm going to take my Suhr Badger 18 head and my Bad Cat cab. I'm going to take 3 guitars, and I'm going to take my pedal board that I recently finished up. So this will actually be the first session that I do with my new pedal board, which is really exciting. If you haven't seen kind of my pedal board revamp and redo video, I will link that above so you can. But I'm going to be going there, and I'm just taking those things. Now, as I said earlier, you want to take enough to be prepared, but you don't want to take so much that it becomes a burden. Now, I have had the luxury of playing in this studio before, so I know about how much space I'm going to have and that kind of thing. So I'll have enough space for me to have my guitars with me and pedal board and an amp, and it's not going to be a big deal that I have a couple of extra guitars for this session. I like to have the option of different guitars, practically, again, if for some reason something were to go wrong with one, but also just for finding kind of the right part or the right feel of the song. Sometimes I'll be playing one guitar and it doesn't quite feel right, and then I'll pick up another and immediately it inspires me to play differently or to play a part that the producer or the artist really likes or that I really like and I think works well for the song. Alright, so just a few last things that you may want to consider packing going into the studio. Again, you want to be prepared for any situation that may arise as best you can. That doesn't mean you need to take a soldering iron with you and be prepared to fix a bunch of stuff, but to have some things practically that make sense. So again, if you're taking multiple guitars, one thing that I like that has been one of the best investments I've ever made has been this Reunion Blues RBX dual guitar gig bag. Now, this is their double electric case. It's not that big. It kind of looks like it here, but it's about the size of your standard acoustic hard case. And that will fit 2 electric guitars, has a nice big pocket on the outside, even has a cable loop and some other things to help me keep extra gear. So I'll keep slide, capo, spare cable, different things, spare strings, winder, and all of that in this case, and that allows me to pack efficiently. So essentially I have everything I need for my electrics in this one case. Speaking of cables, I would always take extra cables. Now, if you only have enough cables to run your rig, I would maybe buy a couple of extras. High quality cables go a long way and will last you forever. I build a lot of my own out of Mogami 25, 24, and Neutrik ends, but when I don't do that, I also have a few sinusoid cables that I really like. They build really great cables. They're not super expensive. This is not going to focus, I don't believe. Maybe? Yeah, there we go. Alright, so great cables, highly recommend them. And it's always important to have spare cables around. I always keep a couple of spare patch cables as well, of a medium length, in my bag, just in the event that something were to go wrong with my board. I can quickly diagnose it and fix it. One of the last things that I like to take is a pair of headphones. Now, this is particularly true when I don't know the studio that I'm going to. I know the studio that I'm going to today, and they have headphones, and most of them would, but I actually prefer these over those headphones. These are the Audio-Technica ATH M50Xs. They're about 150 bucks. And they are amazing headphones. They're great for mixing, great for just monitoring yourself, and I really like them. So I'll just throw these in my backpack that I'm going to take anyway, and I will use these, especially, again, since I'm gonna be in the studio for about 9 hours. I much prefer having comfortable headphones like that over just using in-ears or something similar. So the most important thing to remember when you're going into the studio, whether it's the first time or the 100th time, is to have fun. You're getting to create music with other people, and especially right now with COVID-19 happening, that's a pretty rare occurrence. So make the most of it, enjoy it. You're probably gonna make some mistakes. It's probably not gonna go perfectly. But if you prepare well and you've got everything you need and your head's in the right space, you'll probably have a lot of fun and be able to create some great parts and great music that you're able to reflect on and remember in the future. So that's all for this video. I hope it was helpful for you. If it was, leave a like and comment below and subscribe. I'm going to be videoing today in the studio to show you kind of what it's like in that environment with producers and engineers and other musicians running around. So be on the lookout for that. All of the stuff that I mentioned in this video will be linked below. Those are Amazon affiliate links, so it really helps me out in making these videos if you buy through those. Again, those are going to be the best prices available, at least that I've found. Stuff like these Audio-Technica ATH M50Xs, and particularly this Reunion Blues Gig Bag dual electric case that I talked about. I think that's a great buy, about 160 bucks, which is cheaper than some single guitar cases. So anyway, hope this video was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.